All right, what we're gonna do is we got to do this Bernie and Lula thing, and then let's play a Cornell West clip, and then we'll head towards wrapping up. But we got to do this obviously because look, if you're just watching this, we have covered the political imprisonment of Lula da Silva while it was happening. In fact, we covered this story on this show before he was taken to prison on these. I mean, this is an insane story because if you think about it. What happened to Lula is what Trump is always saying falsely is happening to him. That he literally was targeted by a corrupt judicial system and politically imprisoned. And conversely, Bolsonaro basically gets to benefit and sort of do what Trump is always saying he wants to do, which is like Bolsonaro got to be the president of Brazil because the candidate that was beating him in the race was put in jail. Locked him up. He locked him up. That was a helpful head start. Right before we went to air, there was a new release of The Intercept in Brazil that basically showed that the former president, Henrique Cardoso, who was president of Brazil in the 90s and has been a virulently and bitter and disgusting critic of Lula, had a deal with the prosecutors where basically Moro told the prosecutors to lay off of Cardoso, even though they had evidence of his corruption, because he supported Lava Jato. So it's another example. Because he's smart. So this is another example of the corruption of Lava Jato. And look up Henrique Cardoso. He wrote a book called The Accidental President of Brazil. And he's from an ultra elite background and clearly always, loathed Lula for being more significant and popular than him globally because he felt that was entitled to him. Because like Pete Buttigieg, he speaks a lot of languages.
Does he have a daughter that can do comedy opinions for the New York Times?
I think he might be right on the border of a daughter that could do comedy opinions for the New York Times. So this is another area where Bernie just stands out, and he stands out in a field of people who have no foreign policy or awful foreign policy, or even someone like Tulsi Gabbard, who has signaled the right things on Venezuela or Julian Assange or Edward Snowden, but is an isolationist. I keep telling you, she is not running a campaign of solidarity, of internationalism. That's why she hasn't said a word about the most prominent political prisoner in the world. Bernie Sanders tweeted this out last week. During his presidency, Lula da Silva oversaw huge reductions in poverty and remains Brazil's most popular politician. I stand with political and social leaders across the globe who are calling on Brazil's judiciary to release Lula and annul his conviction. I'd add the 2018 election is totally illegitimate. I like that he says, I'm standing with political and social leaders across the globe. Like, that really underscores the distinction of the offering here that nobody else has. You know, I mean, you're not going to hear this from Elizabeth Warren. And Joe Biden, you know, the Obama administration has a terrible record with regards to Brazil. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it's one of those things where, on one hand, you know, unfortunately, we tend to be so far removed from global issues within the United States that I think that most voters wouldn't even expect a presidential candidate to have a position on something like this, because they're like, oh, it's Brazil, like who knows about Brazil? And yet if it comes to Venezuela or Iran or, you know, these other countries that have just always been within the orbit of what we consider our purview and our national interest, then it's a completely different story.
Or if we're hyping to destabilize, because obviously Brazil is, right? Like, that's why we were involved in doing this, because it's the biggest country in Latin America. But of course, like, I mean, you know, that's like the great example, right? And I'm not to say, like, of course Maduro's committed some abuses, but actually nothing in an electoral sense as extreme as this. I mean, if the United States was trying to do regime change in a country and they said, wait a second, the former two-term president who's internationally respected was terrorized by a legal system and a media system, put in jail without any material evidence when he led the race by double-digit points, and then held in solitary confinement, you would hear about this 24 hours a day. But because we supported it happening, I have no doubt, and because it benefits the type of people who we want in power there, nothing to say, you know, except from Bernie. So, and I guess definitely props to Rokan as well. Ask any person that claims to be progressive, and maybe even a Democrat on this, how they have not said anything on this is appalling.
But I don't think because they haven't been forced to.
And they
You
need
know,
to be forced to.
Nobody in an interview in
Yeah.
a town hall has been
Yeah.
pressed on this issue.
You're totally right. And they need to be forced to. And I would just add, like, especially if you're coming at me with Tulsi Gabbard shit. I don't think you'll hear anything because I think this is not Tulsi Gabbard's politics, right? But if you're going to go and make a whole thing of like that she's really the peace one and really the anti-imperialism ones, I don't hear about this.
Trump was an anti-imperialist too, right?
Right. Word.
Supposedly on the debate stage.
He was really fun on the
Yeah,
debate
he
stage
and
with that
Tulsi
stuff.
agree on generals in the cabinet, not really a problem.
Yeah.
And the war on terror.
Right. Exactly.
I do miss the presidential debates when Ron Paul was in them, just because it really ruffled so many
When he
feathers
was just, like,
on the
flopping
Republican
around.
stage. No, but with foreign policy
No,
in
no, it was
particular,
great.
it was like that to me was always the most entertaining thing, just because he made everyone so visibly uncomfortable with what he said.
Do you remember the moment Trump said to Jeb Bush that was a big fat mistake going to Iraq
Yeah.
in the debates?
I don't remember
That was amazing because
Oh.
Jeb was doing his like, he's just like, mistakes were made,
Yeah.
but blah, blah, blah. And
It was
Trump's just
like-
like, people make mistakes, but boy, that was a beauty.
It was the debate.
A big fat one.
That was a big fat mistake.
It was the debate that was within 48 hours after Scalia died. So
Yes.
Scalia died, and then Trump goes up to Jeb saying like, "We all make mistakes, but that's a big fat mistake."
Fat one.
And I remember I
we were
literally
dancing
cheersed my friend.
Hotline Bling to Scalia dying. Then Trump owned
The brief
Bush.
golden era.
There was a minute when this disgusting like real estate fascist was owning these like totally emasculated nothing Republicans, and this like noble old socialist might have won the Democratic primary. We were just like, wow,
Bernie was
things are kind of
searching.
nice here for a minute. Like,
But that's why
this
it's
is working
fun.
for me.
I know you keep saying about people like Andrew Yang or whoever that they're just taking air out of the room, from the focus that needs to be on
Right.
Bernie Sanders, but it's part of the process,
Right.
and I hated it so much in the 2016 election when people were saying the same thing about Bernie Sanders, right? It's like, well, the goal here is just like to win the presidency, and we shouldn't be dividing the party and focusing on other people. And it's about like making, at the time, obviously, a lot of those people thought that Hillary Clinton should be the nominee. But so not that I'm, knocking who you're choosing here, but I think let the process play itself out.
I mean, my thing is like, it just depends where you're coming from, right? Like, I guess I have a problem with people who are like committed. If you're committed to a certain set of politics, it's just like, practically speaking, this is the game.
Right, but anybody who runs for president also has to be a little bit of an egomaniac. I mean, like, consider what you're doing. And so
Sure.
as committed as you might be to the policy and to the vision that you have, you're still, you're still battling with this ego thing. And so you're never going to choose what you think is maybe better for the party overall, for the election
No, I'm not
overall.
talking about these. No. Look, Andrew Yang I don't expect anything from Andrew Yang. I'm just talking about, like, even to me, like, I'm just not, it's not that they shouldn't run or what. Okay, it's like different things. Andrew Yang is bringing people down a bad path. So I just like actually have a problem with it, right?
Okay, fair enough.
Then there's like, Marianne Williamson is a cool lady. I'm not even joking. Like, I like a lot of things that she said, but it's like, is this really the time to like irony donate a dollar to her? You know what I mean? Like, people are doing like it to me. You know what? Like, if Bernie wasn't in this race, yeah, maybe it is time to irony donate to Marianne Williamson, right? Like, and even like, and then, even when it really comes out, like, what, like, if Tulsi Gabbard gets 2%, that's shaved off of Bernie. Fuck that. Like, this is the flip side too, though. Like, you're totally right. Look, like, anybody can run, anybody can do their thing, but like, I'm also not like the League of Women Voters. You know what I mean? Like, I have a preference, and like, all right, let's fight it out.
I
You know
get
what
it.
I'm
I get it.
saying?
But I'm saying just
Yeah.
think about it, because you also are operating under this, assumption of like, this is the candidate, the chosen candidate should be so X, Y,
Oh,
Z, which
definitely.
is very much what happened in 2016, to another degree, which, might be happening with Biden, unfortunately, this time around too. But just saying, just be careful with it. Kind of like,
Well, I think
So
it's
you support
let things-
Kamala Harris,
let
Alona?
things
Is
go.
that what you're saying?
I know. I don't.
Alona's a Kamala Harris supporter.
I'm not
I
a
get.
Kamala
You know
Harris
who dis-
supporter, but
You know who
I think
disagrees with
great.
you?
It's great.
Cornel West.
It's great that we have so many people who are going to be on the debate stage. It's great that you see the process at work. That's all I have to say.
There's a couple of them that really don't need to be there. I think we can all
Play
agree
ball.
with that. Jesus Christ. You're gonna get I wish Eric Sawell would walk in the room right now after she just did that little like civics soliloquy.
I didn't
It's
say
like,
you need to give him an hour of time.
Isn't
on your
everybody
show.
happy that I'm here to get 200 votes and
Oh my
waste
God.
everybody's time with bullshit? All right,
Yeah, well,
here
guess
is
what? I'll never get to run for president because I wasn't born here. So I'm just bitter.
Ooh. Well, I'm very sorry. Forgive me, Father. So
Just a
let's.
lowly old naturalized citizen.
Well, you can run for governor. You've just watched a Michael Brooks show video, and you can watch all of our full main live shows every Tuesday night at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and subscribe to get all of the clips you want. We're covering the globe. We're focusing on international relations, the intellectual dark web. We're having fun. We're doing deep dives with a lot of amazing guests. Of course, become a patron for the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS, or subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us keep growing and get that content out there. Subscribe below.